Greetings and welcome to our COVID-19 special report for this edition. I'm John Cairns, your host for the next 30 minutes. And as many of you know, we have been talking to a number of mayors, municipal leaders from around our viewing area over the last little while to talk about the COVID-19 pandemic and what's been happening in the respective communities. For this edition of the show, we are now focusing on the community of Delisle, and we have the newly elected mayor of Delisle, Cary Brunett, on the show today. So welcome, Madam Mayor, to the show. I guess you're just starting to get used to being called that, right?
Yeah, yes, it is an adaptation, absolutely. Thank you, John.
Yeah. Now, how did that all come about, you becoming mayor?
Well, I've been on council for 9 years. My first term was back in 2000 until 2003, when I started having a family and thought that might be a little tough to balance. So I stepped aside until 2014 and ran in a by-election, and then I've been serving since then.
All righty. Now, how did the election go in terms of just the way it was organized and that sort of thing? Because COVID-19 had caused a lot of changes to a lot of elections everywhere in terms of just election activities, in terms of meeting people and election forums and all that sort of thing. What was the situation in Delisle?
Well, for us, I don't feel that COVID affected it too much. In fact, it might have actually encouraged people to come out because it was another outing you could have at that time. But the biggest factor for our election was the timing of it, because it had been moved from the end of October, where it always is, to early November. And we had a massive snowstorm the 2 days prior to it. So our guys were out clearing streets right off the bat on the Monday morning. I think they started at 4 o'clock that morning and managed to get all the streets clear so people could actually get out and vote.
Yeah, and I know that the city of Saskatoon, they kind of had even more trouble than Delisle did, and Delisle's not too far away. And so I imagine that it was pretty stormy weather for you folks too, right?
It was very stormy, yes. Saskatoon has a lot more streets to clear. And so that was their biggest challenge, is just the amount that they had to do. Whereas with us, we've got fewer streets. And we've got 3 very dedicated staff who just went nonstop.
Okay, so that was one time when your town workers came to the rescue for and proved their money's worth, right?
Yes, definitely. It's not the first time.
All right. Maybe we could talk a little bit about the COVID-19 pandemic and how things have gone for your community. I know that you've been on council before, so maybe you could take us back to what happened, first of all, when the whole shutdown happened back in March, when the pandemic just erupted, and maybe giving me a sense about what the mood was and what the reaction was in the town back then.
Well, it was a lot of shock, honestly. We held a special council meeting so that we could come up with ways to manage and mitigate everything that was going on, just how we could possibly follow all the provincial directives and move forward and try to do business as best we could. So we did things like closing all of the public facilities. We had to notify all the different groups in the community that they had to stop their group activities. We designated a deputy mayor and a second deputy mayor, because if someone got sick or had to isolate, we needed to have coverage in that state. We looked at all our essential services, water and sewer, and had protocol set up for our staff for if someone was sick or had to isolate. And we've been very lucky. We haven't had to bring any of those measures in, which is great. We've had continuous staffing, we've had continuous service, no hesitation with any of that. So it has been actually quite good, although it's taken a lot of work and time and thought to get there.
Yeah. How about facilities? What was the situation there for the facilities, I imagine you shut them all down, and that was the end of the hockey season for a lot of people. And maybe you could
Yes.
get back to them.
That was a big uproar with the rink. A lot of people were very upset because we were right in the midst of provincials and playoffs, and they wanted their kids to keep playing. We had a number of teams that were looking pretty good to go all the way, so it was hard for people to accept that. But at the same time, it wasn't a choice. We had to close. So we went into rink shutdown and started taking out the ice in March, which is not what we normally would do. And we've had to close the hall and cancel things there. So those are tricky to do, but it's decisive. The difficulty is that we lost all revenue for these venues, but we still have all the expenses.
Yeah, and that's a problem that a lot of communities have. So now, what kind of facilities do you have there in terms of leisure facilities down in Delisle?
We have the rink, which is for both hockey and skating and curling. We have a set of 4 ball diamonds that we've just put in recently. Gorgeous diamonds. And again, that was very limited use this spring. We've got the hall, lodge room, lots of meeting spaces. And then we've got a number of community groups as well. Like our rec board oversees yoga classes. There's Taekwondo. There's a number of things. And then things that happen in the schools as well for the community. And those have all been put on hold.
Yeah, and you mentioned the problem with the revenues going straight down, and
Yep.
that was a big issue in terms of the rentals. You're not able to rent to people because you can't hold events, and that basically lasted all through the spring and into the summertime. Right? Just a difficult situation.
Yes, very difficult situation, absolutely. And you can't just completely shut a facility. You have to keep the power going. You have to pay the bills. There's caretaking involved in it. So yeah, we haven't seen a decrease in our expenses, but we certainly have seen a loss of revenue.
With respect to what happened within the municipality in terms of keeping things going, in terms of making sure the streets were cleared and that sort of thing, I imagine that was a big priority early on, was to keep that infrastructure maintained, and maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Well, are you talking about the beginnings of the pandemic or like the snowstorm?
Yeah, I'm talking at the beginning of the pandemic there too.
Okay. With the beginnings of the pandemic, our biggest concern was the water supply and making sure that water treatment was number one. And we got protocol in place to make sure that we had coverage and that we knew where we could go to get somebody if our 3 guys were out for some reason. So that was our focus, our main concern. And then as we've progressed through, it's just looking at each different scenario and challenge individually and trying to figure out how we can best mitigate the challenges.
Yeah, I know that in my community up here in North Battleford, they had a pandemic plan that was in place, which they dusted off and took out of the vault, and on very short notice they put it into action. Did you have any sort of pandemic plan, or was it just a general emergency plan, or what did you have?
We had a general emergency plan. None of us ever imagined a pandemic like this. We thought emergencies would be a train tipping over on the tracks and dealing with that. This was new. So it did take a lot of time and energy to figure out what to do. And the biggest part of it was all of us just agreeing to be flexible and to work together and do our best.
Yeah, maybe you could give me some insight as to how different this particular emergency is compared to the emergencies that cities and towns usually are used to. Usually an emergency, you're dealing with floods or fires or bad weather, storm damage, things like that, right? And maybe you could give me a sense of how different the pandemic is in terms of the emergency aspect of it.
Well, sure. I think the biggest difference is that most emergencies are isolated to one area or one town, and they are short term. So you get through the majority of the problem and you move on and get back to a normal. This pandemic has been around since March and it's worldwide. We're all under restrictions and new guidelines and learning how to operate in a different manner than we've ever done before. And I guess that's the best part of it is we are all doing this together. We have lots of places to look if we're not sure how to deal with something. We can seek guidance from many other municipalities. We can look at other provinces, countries, whereas most emergencies, you don't quite have that at your fingertips. But on the flip side, we are figuring it all out as we go. So it is challenging that way.
Yeah, I it's learning on the job, right? This is not one of those things that they put in the book, in the training manual when you get elected to council, right?
No.
All the other stuff about conflict of interest and making sure you recuse yourself in the meeting. Yeah, it's learn as you go, right? On the job training.
Oh, yeah. And I think a lot of that you do with council is on the job training. It's a steep learning curve to figure out how municipal government work. And we've got 4 new members on our council, which is really exciting for the renewal side of it, but also a little intimidating because there's a lot of corporate memory that's not going to be there.
Yeah, right. And for that corporate memory, I guess you have to rely on the administration team and the workers, and that's where you get that information, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. We are speaking with Cary Brunett, the new mayor of Delisle. I'm Cairns, and you're watching another one of our COVID-19 special reports here on Access TV. And we're talking about the pandemic and the implications for Delisle and getting to know that community a little bit better. And maybe we could talk now about just the adjustment to all the provincial directives, the restrictions, and just your dealings with the province. I guess the municipal provincial relationship is what I'm after here. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Okay, sure. I mean, from the panic standpoint, it's fairly one way. We're getting directives from the province, we're following them, we're rolling out decisions and making sure we're in compliance. We haven't really approached them a lot through the pandemic. It's just been following the guidelines. But we do have a very good relationship with our MLA, Jim Mayer. He recently came out to our community for the election and he presented to one of our community groups. It was really nice. So we do feel we have that ability to communicate if needed. It's just right now we're all just doing what we're told.
Mm-hmm. I know that the province came down with some funding for municipalities. I know it came down with the Municipal Economic Enhancement Program, and I'm wondering if your community was able to tap into that in terms of getting some funding for some projects out there. Maybe you could talk about that as well.
Yes, actually, we did. We received $49,000 and change, and we put that money toward finishing a paving project that we had on a street in our town that had never been properly built, and it needed to be completely redone. So dug right out, all the foundations of it redone, and then paved. And we were working on the second block of that street, but we didn't have the money to do it this year, especially with losing revenues. So that money went straight toward doing second block, which I feel was a great thing to be able to do, because it not only got the job completed, but it's kept all those people employed in a time when employment is such a question mark for so many We've seen so many people in our community downsized and losing jobs, and it has been very hard that way. So it has felt good from a municipal standpoint to be able to give jobs to people as well.
Yeah, maybe you could talk now about the economic impact on the community in terms of what you've seen that's specific to your community there in terms of the economic impact of the pandemic this year.
Okay, well, the economic impact has been more individualized. Our town businesses seem to be doing fairly well. None of them seem like they've had some decreases, especially those that had to close for the couple of months at the beginning. But other than that, it's the individual families that have been hit with layoffs and losing jobs. That has been difficult. And at the same time as this pandemic, our biggest employer for our town, which is Nutrien Potash Mine, also did a whole bunch of layoffs. So yeah, our community has felt it a lot. And so for this Christmas, program was brought back to our community. It's the Angel Tree program. It's where you can kind of adopt a family for Christmas. And so that has been going strong. We had 39 families that were nominated to receive gifts and food hampers from the Angel Tree program, and they are all getting their gifts and hampers. It's a very exciting thing.
Yeah, we've heard a lot of stories about people helping other people, helping their neighbors, and often doing it anonymously. So that's one of the positives of this pandemic. A lot of negatives, but it really does bring out the best in people, right?
You're absolutely right, John. It really does. And we saw that in the snowstorm. People would just bring out their trucks or their quads or whatever they had and try to clear snow to help their neighbors. People are giving everything they can right now to help those who don't have what they need. And that's very heartwarming to see. It kind of eases the burden of the whole pandemic.
Yeah. Maybe we could talk a little bit now about the functions of Town Hall down there in Delisle and how things changed. Just curious, had you go, let me try again. Did you have to go onto the Zoom platform to do the virtual thing for the council meetings, or maybe you could talk about that?
Yes, we did the Zoom thing. We tried it for 2 meetings, and we found it was difficult to use because our administrator is doing the minutes for the meeting. So he'd look down to write down a motion or something that we'd said. He'd look up and somebody would be missing from the Zoom meeting, and he wouldn't know when they left or what happened or what was going on. So we decided that that wasn't the best platform for us. We switched to using our town hall, which is a huge facility, and we used 8-foot tables for each of us, spaced them all out. So we had tons of room. And then we had in-person meetings where we could actually communicate better and be aware of each other more.
So are you still able to do that then? Even with all the restrictions that just came down, you're still able to do that?
We are. We spaced the tables a little further apart, and we're all wearing masks, which is difficult when you've got somebody who's 40 feet away and you have to project. I don't have a loud voice with a mask, so we just do our best and repeat ourselves.
Yeah, maybe we could talk now about how things have gone heading from the summer into the fall, because I know that summertime was a very quiet time. Not a lot of pandemic cases or COVID-19 cases, but in the fall it's really picked up and in a bad way. So maybe you could talk about the change that you've seen in terms of the number of cases.
Well, yes, as you said, the cases have increased dramatically. We came back in fall hoping that we could ease back into more of a normal way of living, and no, we didn't. So we reopened our rink, and we were really hoping to be able to get it booked up and used, and we never got to full capacity. Now we're down to just our minor hockey group doing their practices. So our revenues are very, very low there now.
Yeah, maybe I should ask you about the whole financial impact. What's the general financial outlook now for the for the people there in Delisle?
Do you mean the people in general or the town? Like,
yeah, the town.
sorry, the town. Financially, we're going to be fine, but we're definitely going to be taking a loss on things this year. We're lucky that we had some cushion and we were able to mitigate a lot of that. So when we opened the rink in September, we knew it was a risk and that we stood to lose a fair bit of money if we couldn't rent it out fully. And we're definitely in that situation. But as a council, we felt that was more important to get it open and possibly lose money and have people being active in that capacity. So it was a conscious decision. I wish it had ended up a little differently, but that's out of my control.
Yeah, and I guess that's a frustrating thing, is that so much of this is beyond the control of people at Town Hall, right? You're just relying on the case numbers, and you're taking direction from provincial government, and it's just out of your hands, right? It's kind of a helpless feeling.
Very much so. It's very reactionary. And it's hard because we get into the municipal government to be proactive and to try to help our community and do things to make a difference. Whereas right now, we're very much crippled about that. And it's more about how we can make these changes the least negative. Not ideal. Yeah.
With respect to the whole Reopen Saskatchewan, maybe if you take us back to the summertime, maybe you could describe how that all rolled out and how that went, and how things went in the fall as well, when things started getting clawed back.
Well, the Reopen Saskatchewan plan I actually felt was a fairly good plan. I liked that they had things staggered and some floating deadlines for when things would happen, because it allowed us to change the plan as needed. I shouldn't say us, the province to change the plan as needed. But now I think we're getting to a point where we're almost being surprised by all these media releases and having to just scramble and figure out how to change what we're doing in order to accommodate those changes.
Yeah, it's getting to be 1 week there's an announcement of restrictions, and then the next week there's more restrictions. And how difficult has it been to keep up with all the rules as they change from the week to week?
That's a lot of double checking and triple checking and asking questions. It's very hard to keep it all straight. Even in my work, we were talking today about the latest announcement, trying to figure out what's happening when. And yeah, it's really hard to keep it straight.
Yep. And what about the situation at the schools? I know that's kind of a different area, but I'm sure that you hear from parents occasionally about what the situation is like for them. Maybe, what have you been hearing as a reaction from parents and families about what's been going on with schools and education?
Well, I think what our community is feeling anyway is that the biggest challenge is the difficulty in communicating with the school. The only options we have right now are online or on the phone. There's no in-person stuff. And our schools have had such open doors always that this is a real challenge for parents to figure out how to communicate in that different way. It was so easy to just walk in the door and talk to a teacher. And now we don't have that at all. We're not allowed in the schools, and that's a challenge. I have 2 kids. They're both in the high school here. And my husband's a teacher in the city, but he's doing online teaching right now. So I'm directly connected to all of this, and it has been a huge adjustment. Wearing masks all day. My kids, which are in grade 10 and 12, have 5 little semesters. They call them quints. And those are 2 classes per term. So 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. It's a very different way of delivering education, and everybody's had to adapt very quickly to it.
I just got a question about how are people dealing with the pandemic now? I mean, we're 9 months into this. I mean, people must be going a little bit crazy in your town. I know they're going crazy in my town. Maybe get some thoughts about the general reaction that you're getting from people, especially now that Christmas is approaching and people aren't going to be going home for Christmas. So.
That was a tough one for a lot of people. Right now, I'm seeing varied responses from this is just what we have to do. It's the responsible thing to I'm fed up with all this. It's got to end. So I just try to meet it all with a bit of humor. I'm finding a lot of people, the majority of people are just trying to make jokes about it, try to make light of it, reassure everyone that we're all doing this together. We're trying our best. And that seems to help. But I do understand those that are really frustrated. It is hard. It's a trying time for everyone. Wish it wasn't so, but yeah, a little humor and a little care is what needs to happen.
Yep. I'm just curious if there have been any anti-mask protests or people have been complaining about that. I know that that's been kind of controversial too.
It has. None in Delisle. There has been in Saskatoon, a number of them though, and we're 20 minutes away. So that's pretty close to home. Most people around here seem to be a little disgusted about the anti-mask demonstrations, and I'm reassured to see that. None of us want that stuff going on. That's a great way to just transmit the virus. So please stop.
All righty. We are in our final moments with Cary Brunett, the mayor of Delisle, here on our COVID-19 special report show. And just a final thought to end this show on, the vaccines are coming, and the first doses have been delivered to healthcare personnel in Regina the week of the taping of this show. So maybe get some thoughts about hope on the horizon, and we're soon going to be out of this pandemic we're in, right?
Well, it's starting to feel that way, but I want to be a little guarded in saying that because it's been such a long haul already. Yeah, the vaccines are very exciting. I never dreamed that we'd have that right now. So that is exceeding all my expectations in a big way. I am so hopeful that this is a success. It'd be great if we could beat this.
Well, let's hope so. We've got about seconds, so any other final thoughts that you have?
Well, I just wanted to thank you, John, for having me on this. It's a very new experience for me, and I really enjoyed chatting with you tonight.
All righty, and best of luck to you as mayor, and I'm sure you're going to find that to be a rewarding experience as you go forward. So thanks for being on the show tonight.
Great. Thank you so much, John. Take care.
Thank you. And to folks at home, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time.